it's a square.
Well, Joe, it's nice to finally meet you, and Victoria. We talked briefly on the phone, and you guys are trying to work through something, if I understood that right. But before we get into all that, just want to remind you that being a double session like we had, looked at all of our as we looked at the intake and talked about privacy and all of those kind of things. Just wanted to remind you that everything, whatever we talk about stays here between us. It doesn't go anywhere. Even though I'm a student at this point, we will use this, and you sign consent forms for that. We'll use this for training purposes only, and then it'll be destroyed. And I want to assure you that I follow that very strongly. And other than the few things we talked about, abusive kind of things, child abuse, those sort of things. Remember talking about those? Other than that, everything we talk about is confidential here. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for, confidentiality. It's a big one. Okay.
Can you spell it?
So, Joe, tell me a little bit about yourself. About you, characteristics, just some of those kind of things. Describe yourself for me.
I am 41. And I work for Lockheed. I'm an engineer. And let's see here. As it pertains to our meeting, I got a job offer, job offer still with Lockheed, but a new position in Florida.
Okay.
Let's see here. Yeah, that, I guess, as it pertains to this, I guess that's me.
Okay. You have likes and dislikes, or you just work all the time?
Well, work can sometimes take a bunch of time.
Oh, yeah.
Hobbies, I recently took up wood turning, and I like watching TV.
About wood turning.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Okay. And you have 3 children, right?
Yep.
A boy and 2 girls?
Yeah.
I think you said?
That's correct.
Good. Okay. Tori, tell me about you.
I am a mom of 3. Gonna turn 28 again soon.
Another anniversary.
Yes. You'd have to do the math for me, but I think it's my 10th anniversary of turning 28.
Okay.
Yeah. And I teach middle school.
All right. All 3 grades, or what?
Just 7th and 8th.
7th and 8th.
Yes. Takes a special kind of insanity.
Oh, is that part of why you're here?
To teach middle school. Probably why I should be.
Well, if you didn't start out that way, it kind of heads that direction. In other words.
They're taking me there quickly.
Oh, okay. What do you want to know about me?
Well,
If anything.
I think at this point, how'd you get into this career field? What are your values as we ask you about our family?
Values is a pretty broad kind of thing. Can you be a little more specific? How do I view families?
Yes. How do you see the importance of family? Because we're here because we feel that our family is very important, and we have a big decision coming up ahead of us. And if you're going to preach divorce to us or separation or not, we're just not interested in that.
Okay. I think preservation of marriage is, by and large, the most important thing that I can be involved in. Because the family, although that's probably the larger picture, family starts right here, and everything kind of revolves around you two. So to have a healthy family, mom and dad in this case, the couple is the one that needs the greatest amount of help and sometimes assistance and just coaching, whatever else, in order to make that family strong. If I were just interested in individuals, I wouldn't be a marriage and family therapist. What brought me here was working with teens and young children, anywhere from 5 to 18 years old, that were brought into a lockdown facility because of trauma in their lives, and most of that trauma centered around the family unit. And as I could see the interaction between the young men and women with their parents, whatever that configuration was, and I could see that it just set off a different dynamic for these young men and women. I thought, working with the whole family is the key. You can't just fix one part of it, so to speak. Not that you can fix anything, but you can't work on one part of it and then let it all go to its normal status quo, because everybody falls right back into the same old routines and stuff.
Interesting.
So, okay.
Sounds like a fascinating experience.
It was. It's a good turning point. And it's probably my 4th career here, so I'll spend the rest of my life doing this.
Interesting.
How about you, Joe? Anything? Questions or anything you want to know about me?
No.
Yeah, you can see I have all my credentials up there on the wall, on the guy on the right. And, okay. So, a big move coming up, huh?
Maybe.
Oh, yeah,
That's what we're trying to figure out.
okay. I presume you talked about it, and
Some.
where have you been? Where have you gone so far? Talking about it, and
Well, it is a good career opportunity for him.
okay. Do you see it that way?
Oh yeah, yeah. For me, it's a no-brainer. It's a good position, puts me in a good position for future positions,
Mm-hmm.
Growth and all that stuff. But and a little bit more money, cheaper, little cost of living.
In Florida, yeah. Sunshine. Well, we get a lot here, but different.
Yeah, to me, no-brainer.
Okay.
I guess for me, it's like our kids are really happy here. Our son is in high school and he loves his high school and he has friends, and our girls love their friends in their school, and I love my job. Sure, it doesn't pay that much, but it's really rewarding, and I'm really helping people, and how much help do people get from engineers? I'm like impacting children every day. And it's really important to me. And I've worked really hard to get where I'm at in my career.
Sure. And am I hearing that you feel that would all kind of go away?
Well,
for you.
I think for our whole family that, you know, the kids would have to start all over, and I would lose everything that I've gained in my career, and it would be really hard for our family. I'm not sure it's good for them.
Okay.
But he says it's a no-brainer. I'm not sure I agree.
So, can you tell me from what perspective it's a no-brainer? And what I mean is that there's career life, and that career provides you with a certain level of living in comfort, and of course retirements and all those kind of things. So, you know, so it's a significant thing in someone's life. But on the other side of it, there are things you enjoy doing. Work, I would suspect, in some ways, takes away from that. Because you're at work instead of turning wood. Right? What kind of things do you produce?
Pens, wands, tool handles. I've been looking at doing some duck calls. Our daughter just kind of placed a bunch of mugs on the counter, and I thought I could make a little tree to hang the mugs, that kind of stuff.
Okay. So you haven't done some of those yet, but you're looking forward to in the future.
He's very good at it.
All right. You feel good about doing it yourself? I mean,
Oh, it's fun. It's relaxing.
mhm.
You know, it's you know, I don't know. Art type stuff doesn't necessarily come easy for me, so it's a little artsy. I mean, it's fun to do.
Yeah.
You know.
And so does work keep you from doing that?
No, sure.
Okay. And that's where I'm headed. You have your work life as an engineer, and whatever you do there, probably sending people to Mars or something. I don't know. And
Exactly.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're on those teams.
Yeah.
All right. That'd be neat. Are you going to go yourself, or depending on how this works out?
Maybe.
Well, she might send me, but NASA wouldn't take me.
Oh, okay.
I'm too old.
Well, we're not going to get into age if it's okay with you guys. Getting a little too personal there, but
NASA's ageist.
but then you have family life. I mean, obviously have your wife that you've been with for a number of years. It seems like, based on at least by what you said your oldest son was. And then aside from that, you probably have other interests, social interests, perhaps spiritual, religious interests, and those kind of things, right? So that's why I say those are all kind of categories, if you will. And I'm trying to talk from an engineer's mind. I would think it's easier to categorize things.
Right.
So it's a no-brainer from a professional. I'm an engineer, and it's what I do to make a living. It's a no-brainer from that standpoint. Victoria seems to be in some of these other categories. What do you see it as a no-brainer in some of those other categories, those other domains, if you will?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can turn wood down in Florida. Kids are adaptable.
High schoolers are not always adaptable. The little ones maybe, but it's really hard to change high schools in the middle of high school.
I don't know. I hear that.
What if he loses his mind? What if he starts to rebel and becomes a horrible child? What if he does drugs? What if the cartel gets him? It's Florida.
Well, I think those things could all happen
Just hurt
here
myself,
just as
and that was
easily.
crazy, but still.
I think those things could all happen all the same here.
I don't think we have a lot of cartel here.
And so to me, you have
Yes,
all
I know
these
that.
different parts of life, and you know, each one is a variable in our life, and when by relocating, one of the variables has a significant benefit by relocating. Most of the variables remain unchanged. There are schools down there. She could get a job at a school down there. Kids will make new friends. What doesn't happen here that would happen there is the job.
So your job is more important than mine.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, mine pays for 90% of everything. And so I
always say that.
I think it's reasonable to say, well,
Victoria noticed that when he said covers 90% and so on, something's going on inside, because your comment was you always say that and then you're leaning on your arm. What's going on, Winnie?
Well, I just think that there are other things that are just as important as money, and that's not necessarily why we should uproot our family. And my job is important too, and the kids' lives are important too. And I know that your job pays for all of our bills and so on and so forth, but our stuff is important too. Your job is not the only thing that's important. You could just continue to work here.
So that aspect of it really sets you off. I mean, not like a huge explosion, but I mean, you feel it very intensely, don't you?
Well, yes. My family is important to me. One of us needs to think about what's best for them, not just a career.
What do you think when she says that? One of us.
I think that by relocating, the specifics of living in Florida, we could get ourselves into a better, bigger house where the kids have more room. That's better for them. I think that
Builds character to share a room.
well, it also builds character to experience relocations and making new friends and that kind of thing. So I don't know that it's a bad thing for kids to be moving. You know, there's, yeah,
So, as I've heard a little bit, I can see that you're coming from different categories looking at this thing, and that's healthy. First of all, it is healthy to look at all of it. But I'm kind of curious at this point. What would you like me to do for you guys?
Well, what do you know about the impact that it would have, like, say, on the kids? Like, what are some typical reactions for kids to moving? And, I mean, how do families deal with that? Because I'm not totally closed off to the idea. It's a big choice, and we can't make it for selfish reasons.
Okay. So you want me to give you the answers? Is that what you're asking?
Well, no, but I'd like you to give your input and some
Mm-hmm.
professional advice on some of the things that we might want to think about and effects that it might have on our children.
Okay. And do you think that's what you'd like to see out of, is it kind of a goal, if you will, for coming to therapy or consultation?
Yeah, that we would be able to, make an informed decision about the impact to our family, and know what, if we do make this move, kind of how to make it a healthy and positive transition. Because we both, really care about our family.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to us.
Okay.
And our marriage is important to us.
How long have you been married now?
A lot of
Almost 18 years.
Almost 18 years.
You sure it's not 19?
So were you guys both born here, married the boy next door sort of thing, or what's your background there?
I grew up in Seattle, in the Seattle area,
Okay.
and I moved here during college. I transferred down here to finish, and yeah.
He grew up in a little logging town with like 5 people.
Plaid shirts and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. How about you,
Tree
Victoria?
huggers. Non-tree huggers.
Tree cutters.
They actually
Tree
banned the
cutters.
Lorax there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how about you?
Well, I grew up in this area.
Okay. And so you met here?
Yeah, when he
Okay.
came here
Yeah.
from college.
Okay. And you like plaid? Was that it? No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Tell me, what was your family life like? Did you stay in the same place? You grew up here. You're still here.
Yeah, we
Right?
grew up here. We lived out of state for a little while, and then we moved away when we were first married for a few years, and then moved back when we had kids to be close to family, which is another thing that we have to think about with this move.
Mm-hmm.
That we have a lot of family here and a lot of friends here, and it would be hard on us. My parents are older.
Uh-huh.
My dad is losing his hearing.
What do you think your mom, your parents are still alive?
Yeah, they are.
What do you think they would say about something like this?
Well, I think they'd be supportive, but they're getting more and more feeble. And I'm just wondering at what point it's, actually ethical to leave them. It's not funny that my parents are feeble, Joe.
No, I know. You're having a hard time staying in character.
So
I'm having fun.
that's good. Are you guys typically able to laugh in the midst of, disagreements and things? When you can't agree things together? That's so guard dogs, so don't get too out of hand.
Yeah, I think we've always been really good about being able to table a problem for a few minutes and have a good laugh about it.
Oh, good. That's an amazing strength for a couple, and especially 18 years. Not that that's like forever, but a lot of times people get
Feels like forever.
they get so locked into patterns and stuff that they forget to be able to have fun. What would your parents say about something like this?
Well, my mom is kind of hands off, and so she would pretty much just, I think, say, well, you'll have to figure out what's best for your family and that.
So she's still in Washington?
Yeah.
Okay. How many places did you live when you were young?
Oh, we moved around, let's see here. By the time, we weren't really military or anything like that, so, but by the time I was 10, I think, let's see here, there was 4, 5 different houses, but then when I was 10, my parents finally bought a place, and that's where I lived until 18-ish when I moved here.
Okay. Did each of those earlier moves, did they cause you to go to different schools and those kind of things also? So
yeah.
You had to go through some of the things that Victoria's concerned about, new friends and all of that? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember it.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was pretty young.
Before 10 years old, yeah.
I remember my first day of school being the first day of kindergarten.
Oh, the day you growled at your teacher?
No, that was my first grade teacher when I first met her before school started.
He has a history of growling at teachers.
I growled at her. But I remember the first day of kindergarten. I don't remember the first day of any of the other grades. So I don't remember any difficulties.
Okay. How about you? Did you grow up in the same place, or until after you were married, you said you moved a few places? What about when you were young?
Well, when I was younger, we lived, I was born here, and then we moved out of state. And I don't remember a whole lot about being there, but I remember coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So 1, 2 houses, and then we lived in this funny little house here in Denver, and then we moved across the backyard. That was a really fun move, I remember, when I was little, because we just got to carry everything from one house to the other.
Oh, okay. So.
And then we moved, 7 times until I was, I think, in 7th or 8th grade, 7th grade. And then my parents bought a house, and we settled there, and they're still in that house today. Obviously I'm not,
Well,
but they are still there.
some people do that. I mean, there's more of it occurring today, and so on and so forth. But that's such point. But
So we've been in the same house. Like, we haven't moved all that much. We moved, out of state for his job when we were first married, and then came back and bought a house, and we've been in the same house for 15 years. I think it's the longest I've ever lived anywhere.
in your current house, then.
Mhm.
Okay. When you were younger, did you have to change schools and friends and make new friends and all that kind of stuff each move?
Not too much.
So they were pretty close together.
Yeah, it
or
was
something?
all in the same general area. I did change schools every year in middle school, and that was hard. But I was pretty introverted, so it wasn't the end of the world. I would just make a friend or two everywhere I went.
Was that difficult?
Not terribly.
Okay. How were you able to just make new friends?
Well, I think I was very, some of the schools I went to were very small, and so everybody's excited when there's a new person and you find someone to connect with. And when, the bigger schools I went to, I joined the choir and made friends through that. And you just make friends in your classes, the people that you
So you
talk
found
to.
a way that
Yeah, I think you find
more
a way
naturally meet
to
people.
integrate.
Just integrate, good. Assimilate.
Yeah. And I think that our son would make friends, but right now he has good friends and they're good influences, and there's always a risk when you go a new place that, it's not always the established groups that you fall in with. It's sometimes
This is
you don't know what kind of friends your kids are going to make, and one of our girls is very shy, and I think it'll be really hard on her. She's got a great little group of friends now, and they're all sweet like her, but you just never know with.
So you're worried.
Adjust.
You're worried.
Yes.
How is it that, Joe, how is it that this is a therapy dog, and I don't know how he got in the room, but he's very sensitive to people's feelings. So.
He's also very fat. Sorry.
Well, sure.
That was
I mean,
probably a rude statement to somebody I
that's-
just met.
That's we reframe that as cuddly.
Cuddly.
Yes, we reframe. So you're very worried about possibilities of
Yes.
not knowing. And Joe, how do you think that your children, especially talk about just the two of them right now, how do you suppose they were able to make friends and with, as you put it, nice kids? Instead of, kids might be into drugs or, delinquent or whatever you'd want to frame that as. How do you suppose they were able to make those friends and make those kind of choices?
Well, I suppose that, because they never really, it never really happened where they would meet us, or meet someone, where they meet someone and then try to get my permission to be friends with them.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I gave them input real time. It wasn't like, they kind of met these people and did that on their own. If they, on their own, made friends with people who were nice, good kids or whatever, then I would say that that's, that was them, of course. Being them, part of that is being raised by us with, our values and, things we've taught them and whatever things they don't want to listen to or whatever it is. But, that would have been a combination, their decision making is a combination of who they are as individuals plus the environment, nature, nurture, the nurturing that they've received from us.
Yeah, from you too.
But as far as making those friends, choosing those friends versus the druggies, I'm sure it was influenced by the fact that we would say drugs are bad, this kind of thing. But, they could have made friends with the druggie. I wasn't at school. They could have done that, and when I find out that they're friends with druggies, they won't be seeing that kid anymore, but to my knowledge, they haven't made those friendships. They were making friends with decent kids, and that was, their decisions in how they interact with the students at the school.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me tend to recap a little bit of this. The concern is about moving, and you seem to come from different perspectives. And it sounds, from the course of the conversation, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds from the course of the conversation, it's like you are coming at it from different perspectives, and maybe from the standpoint of those categories I was talking about, perspective category. Somebody has to take care of it, has to be mindful of the family. Well, someone has to appreciate and understand that I'm doing the best we can, and I want better comfort and more comfort for the family, and so on and so forth. But you have raised some good kids, and Victoria, you're not sure if that will continue if you uproot and move.
Correct.
And Joe, you seem to feel confident from what I'm hearing that they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think they'll adapt, and when there's difficulty, we parents are providing kind of home base. There's always a risk, but I think it's minimal.
Have you had problems with the kids at all? Or are they just little angels? Most of them are.
Well, they're real children.
Oh, okay.
The little one's a Spitfire.
Yeah?
Yeah. Which actually makes me worry less about her in most situations, because she will definitely stick up for herself. Not gonna do anything she doesn't want to do. Gotta worry about what she wants to do sometimes, but she's a good girl.
But it seems to me that the two of you have aside from those domains, those categories, let's call them domains. Aside from those domains of family, making friends, their social life, not just being friends and so on, but everything that makes up their social milieu. Seems that that's something the two of you have created as both of your values have come together over the past 18 years. And that it's the two of you being together and walking through life hand in hand that has established your family in the way that it is, no matter where it is. How would you respond to that?
Well, it's definitely something to think about. It's definitely worth some thought.
Well, I've seen a number of couples in the past that have never really realized that they had values about what was acceptable for their children, what wasn't acceptable. Just kind of that idea that, well, we'll let them find their own way. And by the way, we don't direct their life, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, no, we're not like
Yeah,
that.
I didn't think so. So if Florida ended up being the perfect thing for all five of you, what would that look like? You just woke up one day and there we are in Florida, you're in the new job, it's been, I don't know, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. But it was like just, wow, this was just perfect. And you were feeling the same way. You just kind of looked at each other in the morning, aside from the please take a mint kind of thing. Just putting some humor in there. What would it look like? What would you be saying to each other? Wow, this was perfect because. What would you be seeing and observing?
Well, the kids would be thriving.
Yeah, I would agree with that the kids would be making friends. Hopefully by then we would have, found like a permanent house.
Mm.
Maid service.
Yeah. By then, she could have a job after a few months, however long it takes to get a job, but she'd have a job if she wanted one. And, I'd be launching rockets, that'd be cool.
Not in the park.
Not in the park.
Okay.
Or the woods.
Or the woods.
You have to remember, he grew up in the woods.
Oh, he's chopping down trees. They're kind of hard to, unless
Probably launch rockets.
you're Scottish. Okay. Well, what would it look like between the two of you? Because right now, as you go through it, I've observed some critiques. And I commented on a couple of those, like, well, somebody has to carry it, just little things like that makes it seem like maybe you see each other from different positions as opposed to, hey, we've been through this for 18 years and we find a way to come together.
suppose that he would value and recognize the importance of the kids' lives and happiness more than his work.
How do you respond to that, Joe?
Well, I think kids are. I think they're adaptable, and they would make new friends, and it's Florida, right? They'd go to Disney World with their friends, and they would enjoy life down in Florida, not having to shovel snow. I think, sure, they have happiness here. I don't think that would change. I mean, yeah, there's possibilities. There's the risk that it doesn't work out or whatever, but I think that it's just kind of the nature of kids. They're adaptable. They lots of kids move around with their parents because they're military brats, quote unquote, and they move all the time. And I've heard, some of them.
Right, but how many of them end up a mess?
I don't think very many. I don't know.
There's a much higher incidence of teen pregnancy.
What, so
Drug
when you say
use.
military brats, is that the word you use? What does that mean?
Brats.
No, military brats. What does that mean? What's that referring to specifically?
Well, I just meant it. It's the phrase I always heard about, or just phrase that I always heard growing up, to describe the families that move because of the military every couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Constantly
If the adjective brat has any other meaning, typically I don't know about it, but
It just uprooted and moved, and
That's what I meant.
have a hard time.
Definitely has other meaning.
Have a hard time acculturating to wherever they move. Of course, you're talking different foreign countries and everything else too, probably. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to be clear. I didn't want to assume that that's what you were referring
right.
to.
I didn't mean anything by brat other than that's the phrase I always heard.
It might be. I don't know. I've met some kids that were.
Right.
I think I was.
There are some
So-
bratty kids.
But you guys moved a lot as kids. 7 or 8 times. What'd you say? 7, 8, 9 times.
Number of times.
Are you brats?
I'm sure some people would call me a brat. I don't think it. I don't think,
Okay,
but I'm
that's-
pretty sure some people do.
That's the one I'm interested in. Do you think he's a brat?
No.
No. You think she's a brat?
No.
She moved a lot. No? Okay. I think, Victoria, you asked me for my sage wisdom and to help you from the perspective of my advanced intellect and so on and so forth. And I'll give you that bit, okay? Simply because you asked for it earlier. I think that the key thing, no matter what happens in terms of this move or a future move, or an economic collapse or an end of the total space program or anything else, I think what's going to keep you two and your family together and thriving is how close you guys stay to each other. There are obviously differences in thought, and that's a healthy thing. It's a strength that you're able to express them. It's a strength that you're able to hear them without going, heard it 100 times or whatever. It's a tremendous strength, and I think that in itself will enable you guys to work through whatever happens in life and whatever comes around. And that's the biggest thing, because that love that you have, those values that you share and that you hold to, will help those kids no matter where they go. Your son's in high school, What's next for academical?
The basement. He promised to live with me until he was 50.
Not behavioral. What's next for him academical? College.
College.
If, right?
On the computer from the basement.
Oh, okay. All online courses, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that where you want him to be? Or does he want to be?
It's still under discussion.
Okay. Well, the point being, as we start to wrap up here, the point being that he's going to move on in life at some time, more than likely. You both did.
Oh, he does like video games.
Well, you both did. He will too. Are you going to stay worried about him and where he goes and what kind of friends he's making and everything else?
Of course.
Yeah. Are you going to lock him up in the basement?
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay. No, he will continue to come back, believe it or not, and say, Mom, Dad, facing something here, don't know what to do. Right? And you're not going to send him to see me because I probably won't be around by then. As old as I am.
Well, he is a good talker.
Okay, good. See? All of your
He never
children.
stops.
Your children have their capabilities, their strengths, and their struggles from the two of you. So if anything, we can continue to talk another time or two if you'd like. But I think you guys are in a good spot. Work together on those strengths that come from your values. And realize that no matter what you do, stay or go or face anything else in life, the thing that'll make it workable for you is the fact that you guys stay together and you're continually willing to look at all of the domains that you're both concerned with.
That's reasonable.
And let's talk a little more next time. From a different perspective. Victoria, when you come in, I want you to talk from the perspective of career and finance and life, the comfort of life and lifestyles. And Joe, I'd like you to come in and talk about the domains of family and all of those kind of things. I don't want you to just talk during the week and say, well, Victoria, how do you think? So I'll know what to say. I want you to think through it. So I prefer you guys don't talk about it this week. Just let this go and we'll come back next week, same time.
Yeah, that
Is
works
that workable?
for me. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay. Great. And just like today, bring a check with you and we'll continue to take care of business and do what we can do.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for seeing us.
I appreciate you guys. But before you do go, if you wouldn't mind, puff me up a little bit out, I do. I feel like I was concerned with your issue and gave it empathy and scientific, whatever, I don't know. Did it sound like I heard you? Did you feel heard? Did you feel supported at all? Like I was empathic to what you were feeling and sensing, or do you feel like, gee, I don't want to see that jerk again?
This might not answer your question.
That's fine.
I was actually kind of surprised. Are we still role playing here?
Well, with your comments about how I responded, what you guys were saying and doing, so it would have to, I guess, kind of be within that context, but no, more real feedback. You were surprised.
So, right, so, okay. Stepping out of character here. I was kind of surprised because based on what she whispered to me beforehand, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could do this. I was expecting more of the angle that it's like, well, your job doesn't count because you make so little money, and this kind of thing.
I tried.
Yeah, no, you did fine, and I remember thinking
Got
about
lousy
this.
actors.
And I remember thinking about this. It's like, well, it's like, because then I said, I don't know. I was like, well, 90%, no brainer.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that could be lousy acting on our part or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
But I was surprised. Yeah, it's
Still
still
on it.
counting. I was surprised. But the angle that you took on it was, and I know where. I mean, because she brought up the effect on kids and
Uh-huh.
and this kind of thing. But the angle that you took on it was, well, the impact of the kids and the family and that kind of thing. Well, the kids and the part of the family that they make up anyway. And so I guess I was surprised that, not in a bad way. It was just, I tried to play it like, well,
Yeah.
her income doesn't count.
Yeah.
Without
You
being,
also broke character.
well,
Mm-hmm.
because I wondered up front if you were gonna poke at him at some point, and then you did. My dad's going deaf.
Well,
I don't know. Did you say senile or something?
Feeble.
Feeble.
I called them
Yeah.
feeble. Increasingly feeble.
Right, and yeah, that one just kind of struck me. But, and that, yeah. So it could have been, I don't know. It could have been, if we were like good actors, we could have led you down that way that we were
That we
thinking,
had initially thought, but I just kind of
But-
went with it. So
Right. I thought it was
Yeah.
fine. We didn't have a script, so.
yeah, no, I thought you did
So
good.
I thought it was fine.
I thought you picked up on some of the smaller things.
mm-hmm.
Right. The part about, you even quoted it, and I can't remember what you said. Was it
You always say that.
was it that?
Yeah.
But you had
At
brought
least
it up
one of the
that
things.
it's like,
And someone has to be concerned for the kids.
right, that's the one that I was thinking of, that, and you had mentioned that statement has implications to other things, which a statement like that would, or
Mhm.
could at least.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the context, there was good reason to think that would have implications to other things.
Well, I said that. That's why I said it, because it's a big statement that
Right.
a lot of people would miss.
Mm-hmm.
And so you made specific mention of that statement,
Yeah.
which, from a counseling standpoint, whether you mention it or not, the fact is, by mentioning it here, it communicates that.
So
you
even in the
picked up
role
on it.
play, some antenna went up and said, oh,
Well,
interesting.
Yeah.
it was just that you, by quoting it, it meant that your brain picked up on something and
Yeah.
captured that there would be implications to it and that
Well,
kind
and
of thing.
you kind of mirrored it. I don't rephrased it.
Right.
You know that you picked up on body language, which is huge.
Okay.
Well, and you know this, but like we see with teenagers a lot. They don't say a lot, but they sure show a lot.
Right.
So yeah, you picked up on body language. It was good. Repeated our words back to us, right?
Come on. We're just
Yeah, we're
kind of
Yeah, we're just kind of
getting
recapping.
feedback, really. is
Joe
all.
broke character.
Yeah.
Joe.
There was an outtake.
There was an outtake.
There was an outtake.
Oh, God.
Well, see, as from a therapeutic standpoint, you guys come in and you have a narrative content that you're feeding to me, and not to sound callous, because I'm not. Number one, it helps me kind of join with you guys where you're at and hear and listen, but in so many respects I don't care about the content. I
Right.
care what you're doing with each other.
Yeah.
When you say things like, well, somebody has to care about it, it's like,
And the-
oh, okay, there's a process
Yeah.
that I'm looking at here, what's going on there? And that's why I would ask you, how does that make you feel? No, what do you think when she says that?
Okay, I'm gonna
And
get,
those kind of things.
I'm gonna get the girls in the shower now, and then make
Okay.
them some mac cheese, so we- are we ready?
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, honey.
All right.
Um,
And bye, Petey.
and that was a piece of it, what I'm interested in is the process.
Right.
And the process I picked up on is that you guys have a heavy decision, except that you're at the point where you're starting to think, I don't think he cares about the other aspects of this.
Right.
And he exhibited that a little bit, like, freaking no-brainer, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's it.
Well, and
And I
that's
mean, he
gonna-
just, that which was
Yeah.
that repetitiveness of like, yeah, well, that's where I'm at, everything else will be fine. Which means he is thinking about everything else,
Right.
but you're on different positions,
Well, and we
but,
got started, and I was like, I don't think there's enough with the job thing. I mean, how many times can I say blah blah blah? But I go on about family for ages.
so that's why,
Well,
So that's why I went that way, because I felt
Well,
a lack of
well, I-
material in our plan.
see, I mean, it's fine.
I just
It's
didn't
fine.
know what to do.
I actually think that there's plenty of material in in me not respecting your job
Oh yeah, no, I just didn't know what to say.
and
It's
you know
not a
that kind of thing, because I mean, believe it or not,
You don't respect my
we all know that I make a lot more. And there's been many times where it's like, there's been many times at work where I've been like, well, I can't do that. I can't do this or that or say this or that because it would convey that I don't care about you and your work.
Right.
And so there's been times where it's like, yeah, that's just not okay. I can't. Well,
Oh no, I get it.
like there's times where there's I'm trying to remember the scenario. It's like, well, so my job has the flexibility
Right,
to,
and mine doesn't.
and yours doesn't, and so if kids are homesick,
Yeah.
now because you're working, now I stay home and work from home, and 99% of the time I don't care. That's fine.
Yeah, but
You
there's
know.
been days that we've had to juggle things.
There's been times where it's real inconvenience.
Yeah.
And
sure.
and sure, there's times where it's like, well, but it's like, but I can't go there because of what it communicates,
Right.
and so
Yeah.
it's like, well, I've got the flexibility. It just makes
Right.
sense. And
Well,
as long
if you
as
didn't, then my job would be the one to. I mean, I've said it to my bosses before. Like they know that we live off of your job. My job
right,
is
And it-
supplemental income,
and
and
it-
we
Yeah.
can't. We would lose our house and our
Sure.
well,
you
and
could
it would
starve
be,
and
and it
die
would
in
be,
the streets if you lost your job, and
and
if
it
I
would be
lost
different if my
mine.
managers
Right.
were not okay with the flexibility.
And then
Yeah.
but if
And
I lost
that
my
would be
job, it
different.
really
Well,
I'd probably be less stressed.
so you came in asking for
Hey,
advice,
honey, why is there
basically.
water
Yes.
still on?
It's filling up that tub out there slowly.
What tub?
The the swamp cooler.
Okay, cause I can hear it.
But do you feel that I solved your problem for you?
No.
And I'm not supposed to,
Yeah.
and I don't want to.
Right.
But do you feel like you would be able to leave here feeling more hopeful or more confident that, yeah, we can figure this out. Or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
You know, well, you know, that guy, whoever's watching it, doesn't necessarily know, but we all know that 90% of what we described as far as our life and stuff was all real.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
As an engineer, I was like, this is going my way. We're moving to Florida. And so I'm like, if I just,
But the thing,
if I don't say anything, this will work out better for me. The more I say,
yeah,
then, you know, wherever, I don't know. I'm thinking,
and I think our goal would have changed if I'd have spent a little more time at it,
Right.
which I would do next time.
Yeah. You
I
did
would
more
say
than
our
it.
goal is
Yeah.
to get you two better equipped to come together on this particular issue at least.
Right.
Because there are going to be other ones. You know.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you know, back to role play. There will be other ones that you might have different perspectives, and you'll be able to say, "Oh, yeah, remember that old guy?
Yeah.
He said we have what it takes to do this, so let's put it together."
Well,
Honey, do you really worry about the kids? Are you concerned about them? Well, yeah, I care about them and everything else, but my perspective is, I think they'll be fine. And I think maybe you're a little too over worried because we're doing
'Cause the
everything
cartel?
we can. Yeah. We're doing everything. Oh, they're up in Aspen, by the way.
oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, where the money is. Yeah, and so sending you home to do this, as soon as I said, and I don't really want you talking about it, what did you think?
oh,
Oh, sure.
I thought
think
that was perfect. By us talking about it throughout the week,
Uh-huh.
we would taint our data. It would color the data points that we would come up with and that kind of stuff. And I
Oh.
thought that was an excellent recommendation.
And see,
And
what
what do you
popped
think?
up in my mind was, but what if it's a time crunch?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
There's,
Well,
what if there's a time crunch on somebody who comes in and they have to make a
Oh,
decision about
well,
moving and
right.
they can't talk about it for a week?
Right. No, that's true. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, and that's,
But, yeah.
but that's what I figured would happen.
Yeah.
Is that you would say, I can't not talk about this for a week. Joe, what do you think of the family and everything else?
Well,
And I think he'd have responded, he'd have argued first, but then he'd have responded.
You just say we're not
Well,
going to talk about
The
this.
data's gonna be blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm not corrupting you, just tell me what you think.
well, and I think that. So, for the role play scenario, the part, well, I don't know. I'm guessing that the part of the role play here that isn't true to life was the fact that you probably would have known roughly what we wanted to talk about before the meeting.
Yeah, I'd ask you on the phone.
Right. And therefore, you probably would have had a timeline in your mind that it's like, well, yeah, you know, we got to kind of decide on this in 2 weeks or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that would have changed the recommendation about take a week